Welcome to the Popcorn Talk Network, for the online broadcast network that features movie discussion, news, and interviews. Press 1. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies.
I'm opening. We have an eye, sort of a nostril, 2 teeth. One of the teeth has a small cavity. Close call, folks, but I think we got here just in time.
Presented by Maria Menounos and Kevin Undergaro. This is Anatomy of a Movie. In-depth discussions and breakdowns of various movie titles. And now that you've seen the movie, let the dissection begin.
Hello, everybody. Boom. Welcome back to Anatomy of a Movie here on the Popcorn Talk Network. Today, we are talking about Child 44. I'm your host, Marissa Serafini. Joining me, I have the one and only
Anna Koppel. Hey.
Anna Koppel, a fellow AfterBuzz host. She is joining me today for Child 44. Welcome to the Popcorn Talk Network.
Thanks, it's really exciting to be here.
Yes, so Child 44, directed by Daniel Espinosa, starring Tom Hardy, Gary Oldman. First of all, I just want to say, if you haven't subscribed yet, go to the Popcorn Talk Network on YouTube, iTunes, check us all out, download all of our podcasts, rate, comment, and leave us fun messages. What you love about the show, what you loved about this movie. Lots to talk about. We'll definitely get into it. Anna, what were your overall thoughts of this movie so far?
Okay, I feel like that's just an unfair question. My brain is a mess from this movie, and here's my initial thought. I feel like it should have been called Child 54.
Why 54?
Because when they first were having that conversation, when Tom Hardy and Gary Oldman are having this conversation about how many children there are, and they've been researching, and they're putting pins in the map, they landed at 44, right? But then Tom Hardy points out, actually, my friend's child is 45, and then
my friend was 44.
My friend was 45. Or my friend was 44.
They said 44.
Okay. So then child 53. And then there were like these 9 other children, right?
That happened after that particular conversation.
Right, but I'm just saying, we just like landed on an obscure number, I think.
Well, Child 44 was the case number that the audience got introduced to. That really just set the ball rolling for Leo, played by Tom Hardy, to really get the story going and his objective for the whole movie.
But he wasn't the 44th in the series of murders.
No. Okay, there's like, we find out that like all these cases of the child murders and whatnot have been going on for a long time, and it got to the point where they were at the number 44, where it's starting to raise all of these red flags, making everyone question what's going on. And also during this movie is very heavily USSR, Soviet Russia, during Joseph Stalin era, but it's at the point where the MGB, secret police force back in that time, has this philosophy that they kept saying the line, there's no murder in paradise.
Right.
It's this communist type of society where they don't believe the regular civilian, like there's no murders going on. There's nothing wrong.
Well, that murder is an affliction of the capitalist society, and that there can be no murder in a worker's paradise.
Or even if there is, they look over and brush it and sweep it under the rug.
Well, right. Well, that's
essentially
the whole thing, right?
That's the whole concept.
Since it can't exist, then since it cannot exist, then
they're at the point where they refuse that it exists, and even if it does, they cover it up.
Right.
And that's the whole conflict in this whole film, is that Leo, our main protagonist of the story, and we'll get definitely into the character development and whatnot, but his character starting off as a person who's like so well revered for punishing those who are most seemingly innocent and getting rewarded, and from his peers, from his staff members and other workers and whatnot, getting revered that he's punishing the innocent people. But once his character actually starts tracking down those who are guilty, then they turn on him, which is so ironic and immoral in a way. So that you can see there's a lot of conflict there, that someone who punishing innocent is getting rewarded, but someone who's tracking down the actual guilty is not.
Well, let's talk about what is guilty and what's innocent, because it kind of just becomes a conversation about, are they innocent just because, you think that they didn't do anything wrong, but really they're living in a society where, should you go against the government, this is like the greatest crime. So really the people they were going after are quite guilty in the eyes of the law there, right? So, yeah. I mean, just because, and this is a conversation that I think applies to any society, that just because something is, quote, illegal, legal or not legal, does that make it right or wrong?
Or immoral.
Or immoral, and that's a different conversation. Mm-hmm. But at this point, he's employed by the government, right? He's yes. an agent for the government, and so he has to go after the lawbreakers. Yeah,
and he's very, I wouldn't say strict, but he's very iron fist of the law. And to the point where he's gained his reputation and he's worked his way up the system and he's gained that authority to the point where people just fear him. Even if you're innocent or guilty, that he's just so high up and so threatening in a way that whatever he accuses, whether it's right or wrong, you're automatically guilty. And no one's going to fight him because he is so high up in power.
Right. So everybody fears him, including his wife.
Yes. Yes. Okay. What do you think of Reza, his wife?
Raisa.
His wife. Because we find out that she actually, and I do love how they formulated this relationship and how it just grew in this film, because even Noomi, who the actress who plays her, she says it is a love story in reverse, because in which, if you think about it, it is true, because their relationship, they started off as basically strangers. They are married, but they are just so different from each other and have different beliefs. But throughout everything that those characters go through in this film, they really just start respecting and actually start loving each other by the end of it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it was clear from the first scene when we meet her that she did not love him. That was clear to me. Right. When he's, at dinner and talking about when he first met her, and she introduced herself as Lena, and that was clear to me that she didn't love him. And then I sort of had it that she was having an affair with
Vasily.
No, the other one that she worked with. I have his name somewhere.
The other man who...
The actor's name is Jason Clarke. Anatoly.
Yeah, Anatoly.
Yeah. That I kind of thought that they were having an affair.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And especially later when they go see him, when they sneak back into Moscow and he's like touching her face and stuff. So I sort of always assumed that there was something going on between them.
Okay, that's interesting you said that, because I didn't see that at all. I saw in the first scene we see with the wife when they're at the dinner table talking about that first meeting. I saw there was a moment where the Vasily's character was walking by, and it seemed like he wanted to say something, and he nods to Raisa, and it felt like there was a secret affair going on between those two right at the beginning of the film.
Well, no, I thought that he loved her for sure, but I didn't think that
she reciprocated.
Right.
Interesting. Okay.
Right, yeah. Oh.
But okay, so I do like the relationship that we see unfold in this film.
I don't know. To me, it didn't end as though they were so much closer.
They were closer than they were at the beginning. I'll just say that.
Okay, but is that... I mean, maybe that's enough in real life. Is it enough in a movie? I don't know. It seemed like they went through so much together so much. And then to sort of end, I don't know, for me, it was like a really painful moment almost at the orphanage when they go to pick up these girls and, you know, they're waiting for them to give the response, you know, are they going to take these girls home or not? And he asks Raisa, do you think that I am a frightening person? Is that possible? And, you know, I think she had already told him that she was afraid of him in the past. And I think now he's worried because that little girl had just said, you came to our farm. And, you know, this was like a horrible experience for him. And he hated that moment. And I think in that moment, he's worried that those girls are going to be afraid of him. And so he asks her, do you think, is it possible I'm a scary person? And she just says, no, just sort of very deadpan, no. And I think here's a moment for her to really like reassure him and say, like, you know, I was wrong and I'm sorry and you're not that man and you're gentle and I love you. And but that was it. And then when they left, it was like, you know, the sisters are holding hands and Raisa's holding one of the sisters' hands and they leave and like he's left holding the luggage. I don't know. It was a very strange, sad ending to me.
I didn't think it was strange at all. I thought the ending scene was a perfect cap to his character's story arc, because we did see a full arc with his character, with Leo, because at the beginning he's very antagonistic kind of person that you don't want to root for, and unfortunately he wasn't the one that shot the parents, it was Vasily, but of those girls. But him going through all these things throughout the film, and we'll definitely get more into it, but having come full circle at the end and now accepting what he has done, knowing that he has changed, he is a better person after all of this, and he even comes to the conclusion that he will take ownership and guardianship of these girls, that he is in a way responsible for them being orphaned.
Okay, well, let me rephrase what I was trying to say. First, that his adopting them didn't surprise me at all. What I thought he was going to take them home on the farm that day. So that wasn't weird or surprising to me. But just their relationship, from the conversation point of their relationship, I just thought they're still strangers, you know, they're still separated. This isn't a moment for them. This is, I don't know, she just keeps, they still just seem like there was so much distance between them.
Yeah, it's still of a disconnect. I can understand where you're coming from. I also just see it from realistic character human traits, is that you're going to be wary of the person who's responsible for your parents' death, so you're going to be somewhat disconnected and still afraid of that person. But they come to the conclusion that we're afraid of him, but he can be a potential parent figure, and accept the fact that he will take ownership of them. It's like, you're not going to be like, okay, I accept you as my father or parental guardianship. I see it as just like they're getting over that initial reaction.
They are, but what about Raisa?
What about her? What do you think?
So what I feel like I'm just like maybe not being clear, but I feel like the relationship between Raisa and Leo was still extremely disconnected, and still like they weren't going into this as a united front as parents and we're going to be a family now. It was just something like, this is something that Leo's responsible for and he should take ownership of, and so they're going to go do that. But it didn't seem like now we're going to be a mother and father together. Now we're like a united couple and we're a husband and a wife. Like I didn't feel that coming off from them at all. There still seemed to be no chemistry there, and
maybe is just the lack of physical interaction, or why do you think there's that disconnect?
Well, again, because there was a moment where he was being like, just like I think extremely vulnerable and asking, am I a scary person? And she says no, but that's it. And because they don't leave all holding hands, I guess, because they don't leave like with Raisa and Leo holding hands, that he's, you know, he's carrying, and I think it was symbolic in that way that he's like carrying around like this luggage, you know, he's this weight around with him,
luggage,
you know,
baggage,
right. So in that way, like it was a symbolic thing, but he's still very much on his own, you know, in that sense.
See, I did not get that message at all. I saw it as, And I mean, let us know, whoever's listening and watching on YouTube, what did you think of this relationship? I saw it as that last final scene when they're walking away, is that they're now together and they're starting a whole new life together and a whole new family and a new start in a way, because they started this film as completely different people and now they end the film as completely different people.
Yeah.
So I saw it as they are together starting a family.
Yeah, I didn't get that from them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
All right.
All right. What did you think of we got into character development and whatnot, but what did you think of Vasily, the antagonist, one of the antagonists?
Well, no, I would agree that he's the antagonist, and I think that was really kind of a poor choice. I don't feel like that made sense. That in a movie called Child 44, that maybe I got the impression was supposed to be about these child murders, right? Mm-hmm. Shouldn't the child murderer be the antagonist? Yeah, but
we'll get into that,
right? But it seemed to be. Is that how you pronounce it, Vasily? Vasily. Yeah. I don't know, Vasily. But
throw
right,
a Russian accent on it.
Yes. then it's perfect.
We are American.
So, do you know what? I feel like people call me Anna every day, so it's okay. I can butcher other people's names.
It's Anna.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, to have his comrade, his brother, be the antagonist, just
his brother in arms in a way.
Yeah, it just didn't make sense. I don't know, that fell apart for me.
I think it was more so as Leo was such a strong character in his post and being high up in rank at the police, the secret police force, and then him being demoted and being exiled from his own people, his own comrades, just because he refused to denounce his wife because they're married. But then also seeing like someone else obviously rise up and take his spot. I think it was just the two opposing forces of that was what Leo could have been. And in a way was, but he's not anymore. And it's also just like the corruptness of their government that Vasily has. The whole cover-up of these aren't murders. These are, air quotes, accidents.
Okay, so I guess here's where my problem with the whole film was, I guess, is what was this movie about? You know, what was it about? The corruption in the USSR, in a communist society, and in the MGB? Was it about, you know, the serial killer in child murders? Mm-hmm. Was it a love story? Was it an action film? Like there were just so many different things, and I think it couldn't decide where it was going, and it was, I don't know, maybe too big. And at the same time, I feel like there were scenes that were unfinished, that there was some information that, I don't know, somehow wasn't, all the information gaps were not filled in. So for me, because of the title of the movie, I guess, I was expecting it to be focused more on the child murders. And therefore, the murderer of the children should have been the antagonist, in my opinion. He still could have been a bad guy in the film, but to have him be the bad guy didn't work for me.
I think it was just more so it made Leo's character just work twice as hard because everyone is against him right now. He's set on this mission to find and track down the serial killer, and where everyone is literally he's surrounded by so many people that are saying, no, these aren't murders, these are accidents. And the whole covering up I think it was just like a plot device to him to just work harder to really track down the serial killer, which unfortunately, I mean, let's get into the serial killer, played by Paddy Considine. What do we think how they portrayed him as I guess another antagonist who was the killer of all these children? What were your take?
On him as a character, or
yes, character development, his whole backstory, when we find out that he was also in the orphanage at the same time Leo was, and he turned out to be the opposite of what Leo was, because they came from the same place, but Leo was rewarded and he got the better life compared to the killer who didn't.
Okay, well, I think that was cut extremely short, that conversation. When we finally are learning about his backstory, and I was like, oh, this is really compelling. Great. And now he's shot in the head by our actual antagonist.
Silly, yeah.
Right, yeah. So when we were just kind of learning, like, what is this guy's story all about? Where is this all really coming from? I feel like that was just cut way too short. It was, his whole backstory is essentially tossed out, I feel. And that, is really what tied him to Leo, right? Mm-hmm. To the backstory of Russia, to World War II, right? So there was so much to tie him into that story, and they really just kind of tossed it out. And now he's just like some psycho. I don't know. That could have been in any movie.
No, I completely agree with you. I feel like his character wasn't strong enough for me as an audience member to believe he was a serial killer. The audience gets to see him go up to these children, these young boys, and entice them with candy, be his gimmick, his ruse to trapping these kids and unfortunately killing him. But I feel like his character wasn't strong enough to the point where he's giving his exposition about and his backstory of like how he came to be and why he's doing all these killings. It didn't earn that right that, oh, I don't feel sorry for him, or like, oh, I should feel something for him. But it was more so we didn't get enough of his character that, like, yeah.
Right. Well, and this is one of the things where it was like unfinished, where he picked up that boy and took him into his mother's house. Now, he said something like that led me to believe maybe that was his son and his wife or ex-wife, but that was very unclear to me. Now, either finish that story, please,
ends.
or leave it out. But it didn't fit, and that was just another piece that could have been, we could have had more compassion for him maybe, or not. Why does he kill these other boys and not his own son? I don't know, but it was just a very strange thing to sort of not finish telling us about.
I agree, but I think that also adds to just the irony of his character, that he himself is a father who is the father of a young boy at these ages, and he's killing more boys the same age as his own son. So it's just like another character trait, I guess, they added to him. There's like, why is he, who's the father of a young boy, killing other young boys the same age?
What did you think about him waterboarding himself?
I think that wasn't, it kind of shows that he is sadistic in a way, and but the whole self-torturing, I didn't understand why, and I don't think it was needed. It gave the message to the audience that he's mentally messed up and he has a dark past, and adding the torture element to it, I don't think it was needed.
Okay. I think they did it to explain how these children were drowning from,
even though
there was no water around. Yeah. So I maybe that was the only reason. But it also seemed like, because later when he was explaining to Leo, like, I can't help myself, that maybe it's something that he fights and, he hates it about himself and whatever. But again, we don't really know because we didn't get to know him that well.
Yes.
So,
but we do know this character was actually based off a real serial killer, Andrei Chikatilo.
Yes, although it was decades later.
Decades later, yes. Butcher of Rostov, who's known for that. Anna, I believe you actually have some backstory on him.
Well, so do you. But yes, but real guy. And the thing that I found the most interesting is that his first two murders, girl that he murdered, her name was Lena. We know the name Lena. So,
yes.
And the person who ended up taking the fall for that murder, his name was Alexander. So, as in the movie too. The conductor was, yeah.
Yeah, Alexander.
Anyway, yeah. So
a lot of tie-ins back to each other.
A lot of tie-ins. I think that's kind of cool that they did that. But I think he started out as he was a teacher, I think, maybe. But then he ended up but then ended up getting a job in a factory, a raw materials factory in Rostov. So, I mean, totally accurate to
to that time period as well. And also, Andrei, I'm sorry if I'm butchering his name, but he was known for being impotent. Right. And that's where a lot of it came into play when his first assaults against women, and then also leading up to his first murders, because he was trying to subdue these women and get with them and whatnot. But because he was impotent, he also got mocked by these women, and then also he has a sociopathic, sadistic element to him. Mm-hmm. That his first kill was when he felt that sexual need and high and that drive that kept him still going. And also his character was known for using objects of convenience during these murders. Like the first few murders, he used mud to shove into the girls' mouths so they couldn't talk, or he used branches or weapons of convenience. Right. And that's why also added to the serial killer in this film, you see water, you see buried under leaves and whatnot. You really use the environmental elements too. And also we say train because a lot of the reports said killed by train, but again, using the environment as ways to subdue these women. So and then another character trait of Andrei was that one of his ruse and gimmicks were to go up to these children, these young people, and pretend that he has candy and offer them candy, or show stamp collections and whatnot. So they also use that element to because we did see the serial killer Vladimir in the film, offer candy, offer food, and just having that front that he is a nice guy that you can talk to.
Right. And the real Andrei Chikatilo?
Chikatilo, yeah.
Okay. Was born still when the effects of famine were going on.
Yes.
So he did grow up in that sort of
area.
Right. So he did grow up with that sort of deprivation, and so what does that do to a person? I mean, I'm sure it's a horrifying way to grow up. So.
Yeah, and it also adds to why he attacked and insulted younger females, because he was teenager, early 20s when this all really started to snowball for him and his person, because at that age he couldn't control or have power over other females his own age. So he went to the younger demographic where he had more power and was more able to subdue these women. So, and one led to the next.
Right.
Which I do find fascinating. Obviously, unfortunate cases that has been unveiled for all these women and anyone who was affected. But I find it interesting how they can apply real life situations to characters, so that life imitating art.
Right. Do we have
art imitating life?
Do we have a number for how many people he actually murdered in real life?
Exact number, I do not. It spans over decades, though.
Right.
So it was a high count. I don't have the exact number.
I'm trying to pull it up right now. I don't think there is one though.
But I do like how they portrayed it in a way. I felt like the Vladimir character in this film wasn't as established.
Right. And
to be a believable serial killer.
Right. And clearly, since they're basing it on a real person, there was plenty to establish it on.
Yeah, and I think it's if you knew the original person who was the inspiration for this character, you can understand.
Right.
But I didn't get that going right into this film. I never got that. I only learned more about Vladimir's character until after the fact. So.
Right, exactly. And again, in this conversation that he has with Leo, it was a real moment, I think, of horror and of reflection for Leo. Like, am I also this monster? Am I the same? And I don't know, it was just really unfortunate that we didn't get to learn more. Did they know each other? Or was he, or did he just know that he was also from an orphanage? They both grew up in orphanages.
Vladimir knew Leo.
Right. But he was in a newspaper, so he was a war hero.
It was more so just the only thing that they had in common was the fact they were both in an orphanage at the same time growing up, and they obviously went two different ways. One, Leo had the better life, Vladimir did not.
Right. Yeah.
Like, Leo in a way became a hero, and Vladimir became the enemy.
Right. Okay.
What do we think of Gary Oldman being general?
I loved him. I thought he was great.
He's an amazing actor.
He really is.
Yes. What do we think he brought to this film?
Well, reason, I think. He sort of started out the same way. Like, this isn't how we do things here in Rostov, and you don't be what?
Oh, no.
You had a look.
No, I loved Gary Oldman.
No, I thought he was great. But he started out with the same sort of attitude that they had in Moscow about, there aren't murders and we're not going to look into this, and don't bring attention here, and don't go back, and why did you come here, and are you reporting back to somebody? And but was able to look at this logically and start investigating, and turned out to be a very reasonable man.
Yes, I liked him because he was the most consistent, solid character throughout this film. And also just another figure of authority. And it was someone to really be a companion, I guess, and an ally that Leo needed during all this time.
Definitely. I didn't really understand when they were exiled. I thought they were going to like a work camp. I thought I'd heard that term, or maybe I read it later or something. But I thought they were going, like a concentration camp or something.
Oh, I didn't get that. My thing was, I was more thrown off by Vasily mentally torturing them by thinking they were going to get executed. Because he got demoted, right. He got exiled. Why not execute him? Why not literally throw him in the shooting range? Right. Just to mentally mess with them, thinking that they're gonna die. Right. And that just shows like how evil Vasily was. And we see him walk up and saying, "I just wanted to be sentimental." No, that was just mental torture.
Right. And something. This is something else that I wasn't clear on when he made that call to Raisa and had her on the phone. Then he was like, see that bald guy, and put him on the phone, and then she starts like ripping the desk. Like, I was kind of anticipating rape, maybe like something.
Ooh, yeah.
It just really felt like, because he came like right up against her, and she's like, white knuckling on the table. But then we never followed through with that either. So, like, what happened? She never tells Leo anything.
Yeah, and again, going off of that, I think that just established the whole. That's why I thought Vasily and Raisa had some type of relationship going on, that Vasily now has that power over Raisa. Be like, no, if you don't conform to all my ideals that I have, and you don't do what I say, I now am in that seat of authority that I can do anything I want to you. So right. You better listen to me.
Right. Which is kind of her nightmare, right? Because she's already assumed that about Leo, and she's already lived that life.
But I think at this point, she now can actually trust Leo in just his solidarity and loyalty that he has to Raisa, literally refusing to denounce her, even though she's not in love with him, but shows that Leo is that type of character that he will get demoted, exiled, and now will just be the only ally that she has.
Right. And she pointed out that was just a test of blind faith.
Blind faith, yeah.
Yeah.
But again, I think it was that Vasily and Raisa, their relationship wasn't fully developed, or whatever backstory they had.
Right.
Therefore, I wanted to see more of that, because I really thought there was something there.
I think that he was just in love with her. I don't think there was something between them.
Well, I see it as Vasily was in love with Leo's life.
Oh yeah, no, I get that.
Like he wanted everything Leo wanted.
Yeah.
Or Leo had. He wanted Leo's position of power. He wanted Leo's wife. He wanted literally Leo's life.
Yeah.
And you can see that superiority struggle, and he wanted it so much that the second, literally, when Leo got denounced and all that he just slipped into that seat of power.
Yeah. Yeah.
That struggle. What do we think of Jason Clarke, who plays Anatoly? I felt really bad for his character because he seemingly one of the more innocent people who was, again, under the threatening knife that is and power that was Leo at the beginning of the film.
I felt, I don't know. I don't think I ever had too much compassion for him because I was assuming that he and Raisa were having an affair at first. So I don't know. I don't have like a terribly high opinion of anybody who's having an affair, somebody's spouse. And then, you know, it seems that he actually does care for her. So to then turn them in just seemed,
Nothing.
this guy sucks.
Yeah.
He's terrible.
Okay. I saw it as, again, someone who was just so afraid of Leo and what he could do to him that he will turn himself in, even though he might be innocent, and then literally get, unfortunately, executed at the end. It's like, why even struggle against someone you know you're not going to win?
But are we talking about the same person? We're talking about who she worked with, right?
No.
Jason Clarke.
Jason Clarke was Anatoly.
Yeah.
No, they didn't work together.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. You know what they meant? Who's they? Sorry, I'm trying to remember the man who was at the school when Raisa worked.
Yeah, him. They worked together at the school.
Did they? I thought they were completely different characters.
No.
Okay. Let us know. I still think he was fairly innocent. And unfortunately, he got executed.
By Leo.
Yes. Leo was the one who had the call.
Right, yeah.
Firing call.
Oh, him.
Yes.
Him.
Yes.
Yeah, no, he was the veterinarian.
Wait, veterinarian. That was at the school.
Mm-mm.
Oh my goodness. I am now confused and lost. But other than the fact, I think Jason Clarke did a great. I think all the performances from everybody was amazing.
Yes.
Like
yeah.
Everyone. It's like I felt afraid for them. I felt happy for them at certain moments. But like I thought everyone's performance was fantastic.
Agreed. Yeah.
Well, let's get into a little bit of the production, and obviously directed by Daniel Espinosa, who is also known for Safe House, Easy Money,
and
I
don't know how to pronounce his name, but
he's done a lot of like Swedish films and whatnot. But
this the same guy who plays Vasily, Joel
Kinnaman.
Kinnaman, okay,
Yeah.
was also in Safe House, right?
House, yeah.
And Fares, is that how you
Yes,
say it?
Fares.
Also in
Who
Safe
played
House.
Alexia.
Yeah, Alexei. But so they've a lot of them have worked together before. A lot of them. So that's always fun.
Like they all know each other, and that's how they got into this film as well. What do we think of the direction of this film? You said there was a lot going on. I completely agree. I felt like the performances were great, but there wasn't one clear storyline or one direction that the audience was supposed to focus on.
Completely. And I almost, at some point in the movie, I realized, like, I'm watching this as though they're just, like, little vignettes about the USSR. Okay,
the
you know?
corruption, like how the USSR affected everyone's lives in different ways.
Yeah, and that it just did not seem like a cohesive movie to me. And in a lot of like the fight scenes were so just like, I don't know, blurry. I had no idea what was going on, especially the last in the mud. You know, who has the upper hand here? I often, and like in the train, I just had no idea what was happening.
Let's get into the production design and cinematography. Yes, I loved visually the colors, muted, dark gray, toned, muted colors. Definitely goes back to that era.
Right, appropriate, yeah.
Stalin. Even the wardrobe, the wardrobe costume designer, Jenny Bevan, apparently they had over 400 different uniforms for this film. And they had to, for everyone like on the train scenes and whatnot, they had to make individual wardrobe costumes for 800 extras.
Wow.
All of them muted, worn out tones. And even the production for the clothes, they had to like wear them out, throw them in the dryer, and get them all to that muted color.
Yeah.
So, which I find fascinating. And she's also won Academy Awards for other films as well. But that goes also just to the overall look of this film. It was so blue and gray, and to the point where I get it's very depression type of feeling, type of like deprivation, all this chaos going on. But to like the look, it helped add to the film, but it was also hindered the film. Say the fight scenes, especially in the mud. We'll work our ways backwards. The mud scene at the end, it got to the point where I couldn't tell who was who.
Right, exactly. And
because everything was so consistent, muted throughout.
Well, and I mean, they were covered with mud, and I was
that too.
But I was like, and they look enough alike that when they're covered in mud, it's difficult to. I kept like trying to. I'm like, well, you know, one's in a uniform, you know, look for that. But I just couldn't tell who was who got stabbed, what just happened, you know, and so that was frustrating, I guess. But
yeah, in a way, there was one point I was like, is that Vasily? No, the other one's Vasily. Like, I literally, that was my mental thought train. Not to the full point where like, ooh, the ish is going down, but to the point where I had to like, I was aware or wasn't aware really of who was who, and that bothered me. That took me out of the action.
Right, exactly. I there was no sense of anxiety or excitement or anything, because I was just trying to figure out who was who the whole time. And again, on the train, I had no idea what was happening. And maybe for the train, it was a little bit more appropriate because it was so crowded and there were so many people. And but I think if you're going to show two of your main characters getting attacked and potentially stabbed, and you know that you want to see, are they or aren't they dying right now? Right. You know, that's an important point in the scene.
I do have to say the train scene was definitely one of the most memorable, if not my favorite scene of the whole film, only because that's really where all the action happened. I felt the train scene was way bigger than the whole showdown in the mud.
Yeah. Well, where did she learn how to fight? Like,
well, she learned how to protect herself, because we see Raisa always saying like how she protected herself as a woman in society, but also now the audience gets to see how she protects herself physically as a woman.
Yeah. Okay.
So like it really added to Raisa, and I was like, I really like Raisa's character. She was amazing.
Okay.
Like, very strong woman power. I'm all about that.
Yeah.
But also I do love how they executed the train scene. Just also obviously orchestrated by Vasily. Them, you know, Vasily putting them on the train and like purposely having those guys knowing that they're gonna cause trouble and whatnot. That was the height of all the suspense going on, and just them again fighting for survival.
Right.
And everyone going against them.
Right. Well, let me get back into the story for a second. For me, they did go through so much, right? Everybody was against them. They got, sent away. He was demoted. They were sent away from their home. I thought it was going to be a work camp. It wasn't. But and then to get attacked like this so many times, stabbed, maybe raped, I don't know, but certainly attacked in some way. It never quite translated to me why he was so committed to finding this serial killer. What is your investment in this?
I felt like his character, let's go back to the beginning. For his character, we see the whole scene where, the parents get shot by Vasily and whatnot. But you see his character, actually, you see Leo chastise Vasily, be like, we are people of authority, but that's not how we act. That's not how we run the system. It's like, and that scene also showed that he himself has a conscience.
Right.
And that he knows right and wrong, even though, his whole position that he threatens people, but he also has that stance. He knows right and wrong from each other. So that shows, like, okay, his character already has hope, and he has that hope for the better future. So later down the line, when we get to that point where he understands that everything he's done in the past has been seemingly wrong, he's so committed to doing the right thing now.
So that's it. He's just like a crusader for
I think it's a way to redeem himself, because he knows all of his past transgressions, that he's so motivated to actually doing something right and finding these serial killers. And also there was a personal level too, because this was his friend, friend that he could call family, and he was affected personally. Right.
So if the friend had been the one on this crusade, totally, that would have made sense to me. Sure, his son was murdered, but I don't know. It never quite held up to me why he would put himself through all of this, and his wife, and I don't know. I never fully got into that. I never fully bought into the story, why he would sacrifice so much of himself and his life and put his wife in danger, and that he loved so much. I
think it was also his friend, Alexei. Mm-hmm. It showed that his character was also so beaten down by the government that he too believed himself, no, it was an accident, it wasn't a murder. Because at first they thought it was a murder, but people kept saying, no, this is quote unquote accident. So it's like, I don't want to say brainwashed, but he's so trained in a way that, okay, whatever the government says, that's what it is.
Well, but he has to say that for his own protection, his own life, and the rest of his family.
That too, but also that character traits, believing that his own son wasn't murdered or was an accident, is also another motivational tool for Leo to be like, no, it wasn't an accident, it was a murder. So like more people that surrounds Leo saying, no, it's not this, and Leo's so determined to prove them wrong.
All right,
that's what I see it as.
I'm glad it worked for you.
Okay. We talked about the train scene was the most memorable scene for me. Were there any other scenes for you, particular scenes that really stood out?
I think probably the scene at the farm was the most horrifying to me. Mm-hmm.
Just to show how merciless they were.
Well, yeah, to shoot these people in front of
their children. Yeah.
Shoot their parents in front of them. And for what? Because they didn't admit that they knew where that guy was. Like, oh.
Setting an example, terrible example.
Right. Yeah, I think that was probably the thing that stays with me.
And I think that scene definitely just sets the tone as how corrupt their government was.
Right.
And who was at the helm of all that. Just like, okay, we don't want to root for these people at all. They're not redeemable. But Leo was, because during that scene, he chastised and be like, that's not the example. That's not how we function here. Right. So I thought that, yes, that was a very powerful scene. All right, let's get into some of the promotional and marketing. I personally didn't really know about this particular film. I mean, it was based off of Tom Rob Smith, who's the author. Child 44 is actually a trilogy.
Right.
I did not know that.
Did they try to put all 3 books into this film, or is it the first?
I believe it's just the first.
They probably won't.
No.
Make a second.
Yeah, do you think this film, as a film, is strong enough to garner more sequels?
No.
No. Why do you think so?
Well, here's what I think. I think there's certainly enough unanswered questions that they could make sequels, but I know it lost a ton of money at the box office, so...
Huge money. I mean, this film, budget of $50 million, and as of right now, I like to try to make our podcast as evergreen as we can be, but as of today's date, April 24th, 2015, it is only, including domestic and foreign, and worldwide, has only made $2,929,939. So almost $3 million after
a budget of $50 million. Yeah, it's...
Do you think this film will get its money back?
No. No. And,
probably not.
And I think
that's not even including P&As.
Here, it made with like 600,000. Is that?
Only, yeah.
I don't know if you have that stat or not, but I mean, it's like
for the opening weekend, only 621 plus thousand for the opening weekend. It didn't even hit 1 million the first week.
Yeah, it doesn't look good. And it was pulled from Russian theaters April 15th.
Yes, pulled from a lot of Russian.
Pulled from Uzbekistan, pulled from Belarus, pulled from Kyrgyzstan, pulled from Ukraine. So,
which is definitely, this film is garnered towards that demographic, but I can understand. And they also said that it was highly frowned upon that this film was released at least 70 days before Victory Day. So, in Victory Day is May 9th.
I didn't know that played into it.
That was a big, one of the big factors that personally, for those countries, it's very frowned upon, because it is so close to a day of history in that time. And also, this film only opened up in 510 theaters, so that's not a lot either.
No.
General films open up to like at least 1,000, 2,000 films, and this was not even. It was just like 1/4 of that.
Yeah.
And also being pulled from European countries and in the Russian countries, that's, and Soviet Russia countries, that doesn't help with them either.
No.
But it will be released and available on DVD in those countries.
Right. So, I think now that I've seen the movie, should there be another one that comes out, I still have enough questions about it. I would watch it, but I just don't see it getting made. It just lost too much money.
It definitely did. And also, this is back during the Joseph Stalin ruled time period. That is also very, very story sensitive, and he just sensitive in that way that I can understand why a lot of people wouldn't want to see this film.
Right.
Because, and also, like, generations that lived back then are still alive today. So it might just hit home to a lot of people.
Well, I don't know, because one of the things that they said that I was reading online, that it's being I can't remember who the quote came from. Maybe you do, but that Child 44 depicted the USSR as like Mordor. That so
Mordor from Lord of the Rings,
right? So that it and clearly,
very negative connotation to this country,
like center of the earth, hell on earth, right?
Yeah.
So they clearly don't see their country, their roots being that way, right?
Shed in a positive light, absolutely. Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know that they are sensitive because like that's what they actually went through, or because it just feels like propaganda to them, and I don't know. But there's I'm sure a lot of reasons to not see it.
Yeah,
for plenty of people.
I think unfortunately this, like, and I mentioned it in past anatomy shows, that I'm always fascinated by like World War II era stories, because there's so many out there and so many different countries were affected. And, this is like in between all that going on during Soviet era. But I find it fascinating, and I think more people should watch these type of movies. And because, unfortunately, as these stories might have happened, people should still know about them.
Right.
And learn from them.
Right.
Yeah. But because I didn't really hear much about Child 44, but I still think it's a fascinating story. And I really didn't see a lot of promotion and marketing for this film.
No. And do you think that was their problem? And that's why they didn't pull as much money in the box office?
It might have been. Dimitri, our other anatomy host, he usually has numbers for P&As, but I think it's just like the lack of promotion, and also just, I don't know if, I wouldn't say that the time that they released this film, I mean, it is April of 2014. It really doesn't have a lot of different films it's going up against.
Right.
So I don't want to say it worked against them, but I could definitely see this film being released in like November time of the year, because it's such a heavy type of story and movie that it kind of gives the an Academy Award type of film that type of seriousness and level of gravitas. Not that I don't think this film holds a flame to those type of movies, but it has the same feel and seriousness of Academy Award type.
Well, and there are certainly performances that are award worthy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
From everybody.
Right. And there are some names I think that were big enough. I don't know. And
Gary Oldman. Hello.
Right.
Tom Hardy
is definitely up and coming, I think. I mean, he's big, but
yeah,
I think he's getting bigger.
He's getting bigger.
But
Noomi, I mean, she's been in huge films.
Well, Ridley Scott.
Yeah, produced by Ridley Scott. So I don't know why it didn't make more money, but
yeah, that's just what happened.
I think maybe with DVD release sales, it might get more money. It'll definitely get more money back, but it won't make profit off of this. And I don't think this film as a whole was strong enough to have more sequels and follow this book trilogy.
Right.
Unfortunately so.
Right. Oh well.
I mean, but the book is, I read the first few chapters. Very interesting. It definitely delves into Leo's character, starting off of how he started as a orphan and like growing up into this society, this police service society that like beats him down to the point where he now has become that iron claw, and like the reasons why he does everything and his whole mentality of going about certain situations. Which it's like the book is fascinating.
The book is like 400 pages, right?
Yeah, it's not that long. But I mean, I like reading.
Okay.
But unfortunately, I don't think this what do you think of the pacing of this film? This was a very long movie. When I walked out, I mean, this is like a 2 hour, 30-minute movie. When I walked out, I felt, my first immediate thought was, wow, that was a long movie. Not, wow, that was an amazing movie, which is unfortunate.
It actually felt a lot longer to me than it was. And I said this earlier, that it felt like it was trying to be too many things, right? That it was... but also that there were too many scenes that felt unfinished to me. So I feel like there was definitely a problem with editing, that they should have lost maybe 40 minutes from that film and made it just a lot tighter and could have put out something great. I agree.
I think the editing and pacing was definitely a factor going against this movie.
Yeah.
Yes, it was long. I mean, I'm generally fascinated by serial killer stories. I mean, I love Criminal Minds. That's such an amazing show about serial killers and how they delve into like the mindset of what a serial killer goes. And I think they kind of touched it. But also, I think the editing, some scenes lasted too long and some were too short.
Right.
We mentioned Vladimir giving his whole expedition of his backstory way too short. And then, but we see his character like walking throughout the factory and going up to these young boys and whatnot. It wasn't, I felt that was too drawn out. So like pacing, it was up and down, up and down. And it wasn't consistent throughout.
Right.
And that definitely goes against even like the particular scene when Raisa and Leo are at the factory and they're so close to Vladimir. They're literally in the same room. But I felt the pacing could have been faster and really build that suspense that editing really can. But it was literally following one person across the room, and it was too drawn out to the point where it's like, okay, yeah, they see each other, but now go chase them down.
Right.
And they didn't.
Right. Well, and I think this goes back to what story were they trying to tell? What was this movie about? You know, and because the pacing of it would change with those stories, I think. And yeah, like at the factory when he comes out, he just sort of like head nods to Raisa like, oh, there he goes.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
well, shoot.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and even that scene, such a long scene, but it had no payout.
Right.
There was no payoff to that. So yeah.
Well, he got the documents, so
he got the documents. Realized, I think at that point Leo might have recognized Vladimir as well, because Vladimir knew Leo, but Leo, in a sense, recognized that they are from like this, cut from the same cloth in a way.
I guess
They grew up in the same type of environment. Yeah, I think pacing, they definitely could have easily edited at least 20-30 minutes out of this.
Yeah.
Sped up some scenes that really build the suspense to have that payoff with Vladimir and his character that they didn't.
Right. Yeah.
I think it went against them. But overall, the what would you rate this film? Because IMDb has a strong 6.3 rating. Rotten Tomatoes has a 52% audience. So I think the rating's kind of like in between. But what would you give this?
I would give it a C+.
C. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd give it a solid C.
All right.
Solid C.
Yeah.
I mean, not bad, not great.
Right. C's
Solid.
get degrees. Yeah, hey.
Solid. But overall, I think it was a fascinating story. If the editing was a little bit better, it would have made this
If it
film more
made
enjoyable.
one more pass through editing, if there was like one more draft, I think.
Yeah, more things on the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. I did like this film, even though it was muted, toned down. I think they definitely visually hit what that time period was like. The oppression of in the government and just the regular civilians and how everyone was affected. It really added to the tone of the film.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely nailed that.
And I feel, because of all the scenes were so muted, the one payoff scene was at the end. You might not feel the same way, but emotionally, I felt more happy at the end because it was bright. They're in dresses. They're very dressed up, and it was a bright day scene where there's yellow. It was colorful. There's hope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I feel like throughout a very sad type of story, it ended on a happy note.
I don't know that it ended on a happy note, but it was certainly brighter.
Note.
It was certainly brighter in the room. So
yeah. Okay. Overall, good movie. I would suggest people to watch it. Yeah. I personally, would I buy this film? No.
Will you watch it again?
Probably not.
Okay.
Probably. If I did, I might fast forward through a lot of things.
Yeah. I think I would watch it again, actually. I think I would.
Okay.
But I don't know that I would have an easy time recommending it to people. Does that make sense? Because I would say, yeah, you should see it. It's about, and then trail off into these 17 things. So
Yeah, I felt like there was a lot that happened in this film that is individually interesting. But again, pacing and direction, it wasn't one cohesive film.
right.
It felt all over the place.
Right. The individual parts were more interesting than the sum. right?
Yeah.
So I totally agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But interesting story. Definitely, I mean, you are listening to us, so I'm assuming you checked it out. But yeah, I mean, and especially during, I don't know a lot about the USSR in that time period, but this film made me want to learn more about it. I was like, oh, fascinating time.
Yeah.
Despite everything that happened, I was like, I want to learn more. So, all right. Anna, thank you so much for talking to me today. And
so much fun.
Where can everyone keep following you?
You can follow me at Koppel for Mayor, KOPPELFORMAYOR.
And you can follow me on Twitter at Serafini TV. You can follow all of us here on Twitter, Instagram at The Popcorn Talk. And definitely follow Anatomy of a Movie at Movie Anatomy on Twitter. Check out all of our other dissections. We have so many. We've done so many shows. And we have all the summer shows coming up. That should be fun. Lots to talk about in the future. Thank you all for listening. This music was fantastic. I will give it to the music. Boom. It really hit emotional. Great, interesting film. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you all for listening. We will see you for our next dissection.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the rest of the Anatomy of a Movie staff, we would like to thank you for listening and subscribing to the show. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email or tweet us. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been Anatomy of a Movie. The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.